Welcome back. So today we're beginning Mishnah 13, and this Mishnah continues. Actually, the next number of Mishnahs are going to be from Hillel. The previous Mishnah, Hillel had told us about um, being like Aaron, pursuing peace, chasing peace, and loving all people, and bringing people close to Torah. Now, the next Mishnah is a little bit change of pace. It's a little bit hard to understand. He says, Hu haya omer. He used to say, he being Hillel, Naged Shema, Aved Shemei. One who seeks a name loses his name, or seeks renown. Person who's looking for fame, that person will ultimately lose their name. Udelo Mosif Yosef. Whoever doesn't increase will decrease. Udelo Yalef. One who does not learn, Kitolachayev, is liable for death. U'deishtamesh bitaga chalef, and one who uses the crown, that person will pass away, according to this understanding. So that's a simple translation. First thing to notice is this is in Aramaic. The rest of the Mishnah is in Hebrew. We know the Talmud is in Aramaic, but the Mishnah is in Hebrew. This line here is in Aramaic. Now, Hillel himself had lived in Babylon and then came to Israel, which was because this is talking about the Second Temple period, so a large community was existed in Babel at that time. The language was Aramaic, and that's why the Talmud is in Aramaic, because that was the language they used. And for certain things, people used Aramaic, especially when they wanted to make sure everybody understood it clearly. So reason given for why this is in Aramaic is because he felt it was a very important message to the people. We'll just concentrate on the first part, really, which is one who seeks a name loses his name. So a lot of the commentaries understand this in line with an idea that a person who chases honor is not going to get it. The person who chases honor runs away from them, the Gemara tells us. On the flip side, if you are humble and you seek humility, then honor will chase you. It'll find you. And so there's another Gemara that says, if you seek humility, you'll find honor, and if you seek honor, you'll find embarrassment. So the Tiferes Yisrael, in his comment to this Mishnah, he wants to line up all the different parts of the Mishnah in relation to the idea of humility and the flip side being arrogance. That a person who is arrogant and a person who is actively arrogant, some people, we all probably have some form of arrogance, but some of us are able to control it. But a person who's actively arrogant and is going out and trying to make his name that everybody should know, look at me, etc., there are consequences to that. And the first part, which talk about extending your name. So a person wants to, one example he gives, he wants to rule over people. He wants to have authority over people, and he talks about it in one area, a city, whatever it was. So you're going to impose your will. You're going to impose your rule against everybody else. A person like that, eventually they're going to lose their name. People are not going to remember you certainly not for good. If anything, it'll be for negative. This person was seeking honor that they didn't deserve. So then in the end, they'll lose even whatever honor they did deserve. It'll go so much the opposite. And that's that we see with many people who, you try to get too much and then you fall. We have an idea of the higher you are, the longer you fall, so the Maharal actually talks about that also, the idea that pride goes before destruction. That once a person's fame is far and wide, you have to pay attention, because that could be a harbinger of decline. That once you've hit the top, there's no way to go, and the only way is down. He actually gives a reason why. One of the things that we learned earlier was, the Gemara also brings down an idea that authority. We talked about the idea in the Mishnah earlier about staying away from authority. from being an authoritative person if you can avoid it. Obviously, if it's necessary that you're the one, but don't go seeking positions of authority just for the to be in charge. And we gave an idea that Gemara said that the authority buries its owners. And he gave an example of Yosef, who we just read about last week, that on Shabbos, right, the Parsha Vayechi, where Yosef died, he was only 110 years old. I say only because everyone else in his circle, his brothers, all lived longer than that. He was the youngest to die of all the brothers. And one of the things the Talmud tells about it is that it was because he was in that position of authority, and authority kills you. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Obviously, from a stress point of view, there is an element to that. But someone, so that's just natural, right? When you are, even if you're doing it all for the right reasons, then there's a lot of stress involved. But if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, then there's an extra factor involved that Hashem gets involved as well in a less than natural way, and therefore you could end up losing some time from your life. So the Maharal wants to say that the reason why people who are in authority will be buried is because in the big picture we know Hashem supports all life. Everything in life is because Hashem is supporting us. So if I have a relationship with Hashem that says, Hashem, I'm depending on you. I need you to survive. So Hashem says, oh, okay, you're asking me for what you need. I'll provide it. I'll provide what we call the flow, the shefa, from above down to provide you what you need. Someone who is looking to be in charge and to run everything himself, that person's not looking to Hashem for things. That person thinks I can do whatever I want. I'm going to be in charge. I'm going to run the show. And therefore, if that person's not asking Hashem for anything, Hashem says, okay, listen, you don't need me? Okay, so I'm not going to provide that flow. You're on your own. Do whatever you can. And therefore, they won't receive that sustenance. So there could be we'll call it a natural cause and effect. One other idea we'll share for today is something Rabbi Twersky quotes in the name of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. We had also mentioned earlier when we talked about Hillel that Hillel, as I said, he came from Bavel and came into the land of Israel, and ultimately he became the Nasi, he became the leader, and that was because the leaders before him who were not sure about certain laws about when Shabbos came out on Erev Pesach and what to do about bringing the offering, and he knew the answer. They didn't, and they appointed him. And after they appointed him as the Nasi, the Talmud tells us what he reprimanded them. He was sharp with them, and he said, if you guys had been more diligent in your learning, if you had listened to the previous generation, Shmai and Avtalion, then you would have known that halacha. So the reason you didn't know it was because you guys were not diligent in your studies. That was a pretty sharp rebuke. And then right after that, shortly after that, there was a question that came up, which I also had mentioned in a previous class, which was that how do people get their knives if Erev Pesach is Shabbos and you can't carry? So how do people get their knives to bring for their Korban Pesach, to slaughter the Korban Pesach? So Hillel did not know the answer either. And they ended up, he said, the people are prophets, the sons of prophets, they'll know what to do. And the people knew what to do. They stuck the knife inside the back, the wool of the sheep, and the sheep carried it. They didn't have to carry it. But Hillel forgot the halacha. How did he forget the halacha? So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says that it was actually a punishment for him, or a cause and effect as well. He says that if we go back to we learned about Aaron, he says remember Moshe and Aaron were brothers, but Moshe was the leader. Aaron was the one who everybody viewed as the peacemaker. And he says the difference between Moshe and Aaron, he says, was not necessarily that Aaron was such a more compassionate person than Moshe. He says it was their roles and responsibilities. Moshe's job, he was the boss, he was in charge. And because he was in charge, he had to be tough, because that's what leadership is sometimes. Leadership, you have to be tough. And he didn't have that, let's call it freedom, to be flexible all the time and to be the peacemaker. Aaron, who didn't have that responsibility, he could be the peacemaker as much as he wanted to, because he didn't have to worry about repercussions of what the terms of authorities. So when Hillel was appointed the leader, all of a sudden he became a different person now because he's now the boss. He's now got responsibilities in a new role. And so now he had to rebuke them because that's his responsibility. He felt all the pressures of this position, and therefore, as a result of that, it caused him to have an oversight and to make the mistake because all of a sudden he's in a new role. He was no longer just a regular guy. He was now the one in charge. And when a person's in charge, then the way you make decisions is not necessarily going to be exactly the same as when you are free to do whatever you want and the way you conduct yourself. And so that's what happened is that Hillel forgot, according to the Marsha, the reason he forgot was because he shouldn't have rebuked them in such a strong way. Yes, he had to rebuke them, but not in such a strong way. And therefore, originally, when Hillel was talking about that was before he became the leader, when he talked about pursuing peace like Aaron. But then when he became the leader, now he had the pressures and he taught. So now he's teaching about what happens when you have these pressures and how it could also cause you not only to speak properly, but it also can cause you to forget what you've learned, and your fame can cause you a loss of fame because your learning suffers. In other words, if you are no longer as knowledgeable because you forgot everything, forgot some things, you're going to end up coming down a notch. They won't view you as strongly. We'll hold it over here. Continue the Mishnah tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.